Today's guest is none other than our very own Mayor Victor Gordo, whose story is bound to inspire and captivate. Welcome to the studio, Mayor Gordo.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so grateful that you could join us.
Absolutely.
And so today we want to hear about your story. You have a very unique story that I think many people can relate to. And so let's start at the beginning. You know, how old were you when you got to Pasadena, and how did you get here?
Well, originally, I lived with my parents in a small village in Zacatecas, Mexico. I recall working on farms. The home we lived in was made of adobe.
Wow.
My father came to Pasadena when I was 3 years old.
Okay.
Left my mother and I in Zacatecas to come establish himself.
Yeah.
Then when I was 4 years old, my mother came to join him. They'd established themselves in a garage here in Pasadena. And then when I was 5, they sent for me. And I remember my grandfather driving me from Zacatecas. It was a 2 or 3 day bus ride. Very dusty.
Yeah.
From Zacatecas to Tijuana, and from there I was assisted to come to Pasadena.
Okay.
I was handed over to people I'd never met before.
Wow.
And woke up in Pasadena in a small 2-car garage.
Yeah.
To meet my parents and also meet a sibling or two who'd been born in the interim.
Okay. And how did that experience shape who you have become and your experience in Pasadena?
Well, it makes me never want to leave Pasadena.
Nice.
In large part because it's the only home I've ever really known.
Right.
It was in some ways, I remember it so clearly because it was traumatic to have your parents leave, and then you get to know your grandparents, and then you're pulled away from your grandparents. But ultimately, I got to know Pasadena, reconnected with my parents and family here in Pasadena. It shaped me because I think stability in life is important for families.
Yeah.
And so everything that I do, whether it's recreation programs, health, mental health, often is geared towards improving lives for families.
Yeah. And your story is abnormal in the sense that you were a working student. You worked your way through school, and just to take us back, when you started going to school, your mother passed away, and you needed to take some time away to raise your siblings. And so while you were supporting your siblings and raising your siblings, supporting your family, who was supporting you? Where did you find your support?
Well, when I attended school, even at a very young age, the first few years were very rough because I didn't speak the language, and there was no bilingual education, and so I'm not sure what I was learning other than I was sitting in the classroom. So I attended first grade, second, third, fourth, fifth, and on through high school at the Pasadena Unified School District. And I worked the entire time. My father worked as a cook at the same restaurant for 50 years.
Wow.
And when he was working there, I'd go to the restaurant and serve chips and salsa and clean tables and get a few dollars for spending money. I also delivered the Pasadena Star-News before school every day to try and help out with the family. My mother did pass away when I was young. My youngest brother was 4 years old when my mother passed away.
Okay.
And so I had to work and go to school in order to help my father and siblings make ends meet. And so when I was college age, this was during high school, when I was more college age, I had to, stick around here as well. Not that I wanted to leave. And PCC was a great school.
It's a great school.
I attended PCC before going on to law school.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people think about the challenges that working students experience, but what were some of the benefits that you think you experienced being that you had to work and you were also continuing your education?
Well, there's a certain, you have to want it, and you have to be focused and know why you want it. Right. And so there's a certain drive that's instilled in you when you realize that no one is going to, be there to make sure you show up to class. No one is going to pay for your books or your tuition. Yep. And so if you don't want it and you don't have the drive to achieve it, well, you're working a job and spending that money on something you don't really want. And so for me, it instilled really a drive to want to have an education and be a lawyer, but also a drive and an understanding of what it takes to do that while you're working, paying bills. Yeah. Wow. And so it allows me to connect with people at all levels.
Right, absolutely. And, they say the thing that will differentiate two people the most will be the grit. Grit that someone has, right? They can have equal talent. You can even have a more talented person, but if they lack that grit, they're less likely to be successful. And so that's something that I see in your story, and I really admire that you worked your way into where you are now. And so was there a pivotal moment where you realized that you could do more and that you were just like, yeah, this is my path, this is what I'm gonna do?
Well, I think there was, and that pivotal moment came probably when I was a student at Pasadena City College. Okay. And I took a course in business law classes, and I thought, I can do this. I really like this. I liked the study of law. Okay. I liked the process, and I thought to myself, I can do this. I know I can. If I work hard, I can become a lawyer. Yeah, that's powerful. And were there teachers in your life that really helped guide you through that process? Because it's one thing to be at PCC and you're, in the community college, junior college environment, which PCC is amazing. But then going to the university, how was that shift? Because you also were commuting, I'd imagine, at that time as well. So, I was fortunate. Excuse me, I was involved in sports. I think it was a channel to sort of, disconnect because it was tough. Yeah. It was tough. It was a tough life. But played sports in high school and Little League and all of that. And I was very fortunate to have coaches and teachers who guided me, who provided inspiration, who told me, you have a future here. Yes. Who, both of my parents worked. My father at the restaurant as a cook and dishwasher. My mother was a seamstress before she passed, paid by the piece. Okay. And so she would bring work home, and so she couldn't take me to Little League practices, or soccer practices or football. So team mothers for my teams would pick me up and take me to these practices and make me a part of not just the team, but the community. And I always appreciated that. Yeah. And so it's a combination of teachers, coaches, team mothers, neighbors. Yes. I tell people, sometimes I feel like my life has been a relay race with someone always ready to take the baton. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah. And so you really have experienced how important community is, but also that it truly does take a village. And so in your role as mayor, I'm sure that played a part, but how does it specifically, how does community play a role in
how you envision the city of Pasadena?
Well, community is very important. You know, one of the things that I'd like to see us do better as a people, as a city, as residents, as family members, is recognize that every one of us needs help now and then.
Yes.
You know, I was asked for my last year in law school. We were all asked as graduates to provide a saying for the lower class students, some advice, and mine was ask for help when you need it and give it when asked.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is I think we all forget that we all need help now and then. And we should ask for help, particularly from our family members.
Yes.
And we're all capable, regardless of our station in life, of assisting someone.
It's true.
And we should do that when we're asked to.
Absolutely.
And so I think we forget that too often. And I think that applies to the broader community,
Yes.
not just to us as individuals, as brothers and sisters, as neighbors, as friends. But I think that concept is often forgotten in today's society. And so bringing that sense of community back, bringing that sense of we're all in this together, and we're stronger together if we work together,
That's right.
is something that I think we should all work towards reinstilling in our community.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I love the theme of service. We being of service, but also receiving when we need to. And so as a working student, that can be sometimes difficult to accept help because you're so used to giving help. So what is one way or something that you kept in mind to keep yourself open and available to receive help?
Well, I've often found that teaching is a way to receive help. When I was in law school, for example, I would teach groups of students who were struggling. I offered to help guide them because it helped me learn the material better. I learned early on as an athlete that if you could learn something, whether it was hitting a ball or whatever it may be, if you could learn it in the way that you had to teach it, then you would learn it better. And so on Saturday afternoons, I would get together a study group of students who were taking classes maybe that I'd already taken.
Yes.
And I'd offer, or that I maybe was doing better in, and I'd offer to help them better understand the material.
Right.
And it would actually help me probably as much as, if not more than it helped them.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I had to explain it, I had to verbalize it, I had to draw it on the whiteboard and write it out. And so I would encourage them to do the same thing.
There's three people I would like to hear what you would say to them. So the first is, what would you say to the working student?
To the working student, I would say work hard, but prioritize your studies. It's very easy to get distracted, and you're working hard, and pretty soon that distraction becomes a deviation from the ultimate goal of studying.
Right.
Keep that at the front and the forefront. Working is a way to support your ultimate goal of education. Right.
Yeah. And so, how did you avoid burnout, or did you?
I don't know that I did. It's tough. It's you have to keep again at the forefront why you're doing this,
right?
Because it's a sacrifice to work and to study, and it's too easy to allow the work to become the priority, and you sort of lose track of the education piece and why you're doing both.
Yes, and the personal life piece, which is important too.
That's right.
Maintaining your health, and like you said, bringing attention to mental health. And we know that is a really big issue that has been avoided for many years. So it's good that we're now able to spread more light on it so that we can address it when it comes up. So my second question is, what would you say to the immigrant youth or young adult who is here trying to make a way with big dreams, big ideas, but maybe sometimes feels a little discouraged?
You know, you can feel discouraged. You know, I remember as an immigrant child growing up in Pasadena, we lived in that garage. There was a can of Folgers coffee in the corner of the garage under the bed where my parents slept, and in that Folgers coffee can were documents, copies of driver's licenses, birth certificates,
Yes.
phone lists, cash. And I knew if I was 5, 6, 7 years old, if my parents didn't come home, I was to take that coffee can and bring it to my neighbors and ask them for assistance. So it was very discouraging from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm certain that there are a lot of other kids in our community who have a similar experience,
Yes.
who live with the instability of not knowing whether their parents may or may not come home. And so I would say to them, stay focused on, the sacrifice that your family has made to bring you here.
Yes.
The immigrant community leaves everyone and everything that they know behind to
Yes.
come to this country and forge a better life for their kids.
Right.
I can't imagine leaving my job, my friends, my family, leaving everything behind for a country that I didn't know, for the benefit of someone else. But that's what immigrants do.
Yes.
And so I say to them, that's what kept me going. I would watch my dad and my mother work very hard, and so I was determined to work as hard, if not harder than them.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for that. And then the last question relating to what you just shared, what would you say to your mother, to your father, to your abuela and abuelo? What would you say to them?
Gracias. Gracias y los quiero. Thank you and I love you. They made some tremendous sacrifices in their own life. They worked very hard. They worked 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And I remember both of my parents at night just, basically falling over at 10 o'clock at night. And, my mother continued to ensure while she was alive that people were doing their homework. And
Yes.
she was, unfortunately she died when she was, when we were all very young. But as the oldest, I got to know her best. But she was a very strong woman, very spiritual woman, instilled that in us.
Yes.
She also was very involved in community at church at St. Philip's Church on Hill in Del Mar.
Again, that service piece.
Yeah. On Wednesday afternoons, we would go and we'd collect frozen donuts from the church that were donated by donut stores, and we would deliver them to people who needed them, and food and canned goods.
Yeah.
And so she instilled in me, look, we may not have much, but there are people who have less than even we do.
Absolutely.
So, we that's what we would do. Ultimately, my parents, I don't know how they did it, but saved up enough money to buy a small house.
Wow.
And they did that.
Yeah.
I still don't understand how, but
Isn't it interesting when we look back and we're like, whoa.
yeah, how'd you do that?
Right. So speaking of your parents and speaking of you as a parent, how did you instill work ethic and attitudes of service in your children, considering that they are growing up in a much different environment than you had to?
Yeah, they have it a little bit better.
Yeah. Just a little.
Yeah. But I have them go out to events with me.
Good.
I have them, when we do giveaways, come out and be helpful, and I tell them, I want you to directly be involved.
Yes.
They're also involved through their schools.
Good.
And with their friends. I think it's important to do it with, to be involved with people because then you always have that connection.
Absolutely.
So, it's, and they see the need in our community and the importance of people helping people.
Yes.
And, they're a little busier than I was in terms of activities because we didn't have the resources to
do all of the
activities.
Yeah.
But they are involved, and I talk to them regularly about how fortunate we are.
Oh yes.
To have the opportunities that we have. That translates into them having greater opportunities as well.
Absolutely. And have they had a chance to visit your hometown in Mexico?
My wife has.
Okay.
But I regrettably have not been able to take them.
Okay.
Because of the situation in Mexico.
Absolutely,
It's just terrible.
Yeah.
It's regrettable.
Yeah.
It pains me to think of that because I would love to take them to.
Absolutely.
The home and the village.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so you said you played sports. Did you play soccer?
I did.
Okay. So has that fueled your passion for the events that we have recently been able to host here in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl?
Yeah.
And how has that played a role in your choices there?
Well, it has. I mean, I played soccer, football, and baseball.
Okay.
And so the Rose Bowl has always been an important institution. And
You worked there too, right? For a bit?
As a kid, I sold stuffed footballs.
Okay.
At the Rose Bowl. When I was 12 years old, I'd walk around with a bag of stuffed footballs and sell them.
Wow.
During football games. And so I was always in awe of the stadium. And then I got to serve on the board and then president of the stadium while we did the renovation.
Wow.
So I had the opportunity to have a hand in renovating it. And so I did that in large part, one, because the city needed it, and two, and the stadium needed it, and two, because I believe it's such an important icon and institution for Pasadena and for the region and the country.
Yes.
And so now to see it alive, and this is what we said when we did the renovation, we have to position it for competition with an NFL stadium. This is before the NFL stadium arrived.
Wow.
And so we renovated it, and sure enough, that NFL stadium came to Inglewood.
Yeah.
And we're in a position to compete. You know, we just had a great concerts. We're developing the music profile.
Good.
We've got soccer coming, even more soccer.
Big time soccer,
Big time soccer. And it's still a football stadium.
That's right, yeah.
So, you know, I think it's been a tremendous success. The Rose Bowl is going from the COVID points where the city had to subsidize it 1 year for $20 million because of the loss in revenue. But we got the money back from the federal government. To now it's going to turn a profit again.
Look at that. Yes.
Operationally. So it's, you know, it feels good to have had a hand in that.
Yeah, and it's amazing to hear how every aspect of your story has led to fruition for us as residents here in Pasadena. So we're grateful.
It's a team effort. We're all doing it together.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for your service to the community, and thank you for joining us here on our first episode of Portraits of the Community. Yes, number one. But we appreciate you sharing your story. It's been great.
Well, thank you, and thank you for doing it.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Guys have seen it here first. We are here with Mayor Gordo, and we have just discussed his wonderful story. Please join us again next time for more Portraits of the Community.